Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Your Space presentation, helping my child or youth with organization and focus. And we're thrilled to have Michelle McVitie here from Joyce Children's Health Center. And I'm just going to hand things right over to Michelle.
Okay, welcome everybody. So we are going to be talking about organization. It's a great time to get started. I am Michelle. I'm a child life specialist. I've worked with children for over 20 years, and I have 2 kids of my own. I have issues with organization myself, so it is a learning process. So when your children are struggling, it's just a skill that they don't have, and we have to work on it. So 10 habits of organized people. So this would be my ideal. I wish I could be this person, and I'm working on getting to be that person. They write things down. They have routines. They know how to ask for help. Their to-do list stays current. They purge clutter on a semi-daily basis. They have a place for everything. They're optimistic and goal-orientated. They don't put things off until later. They come prepared, and they know how they need to de-stress, and they do so. Doesn't that sound wonderful? So how many of these things can you check off yourself? And then let's take a look at our kids, right? So it does start with us. We do need to be organized, and some of you are organized, and that's great. It can be a little more frustrating when your children aren't organized, but then we have to make it child-friendly, being patient, and eventually, hopefully, they'll catch on to some of these things with lots of support from us. All right, so we're going to put up a little poll to see if we can get to know your child a little bit more. Do you have this as a poll, Louise?
Hello there. I'm so sorry. I know we're
Hey,
recording and everything. I just
it's
got
okay.
bumped out. It totally hung up. So I do have this as a poll.
Oh,
And if others
wonderful.
had any issue with the sound that was lagging, and I had that too, and then it just suddenly went boop, boop and logged me out. So I'm back, and there you go with the
Okay,
poll.
wonderful. Wonderful, thank you.
And I don't know why that's. I'm just going to move one of the boxes down a bit because I think the poll is a little bit hidden for some reason. There we go. If people need to, you can grab um, the scroll bar at the right to get to all the options.
Okay, so taking a look at this, you can try to understand where your child is struggling, how big the steps need to be for your child. Some kids, especially if they're having a hard time sustaining attention on tasks, they're having a hard time following through, then we have to be on top of them a little bit more. And it's supporting them in a way, it's not micromanaging, it's setting them up, making sure they have some independence, but they're going to need the checklists, the reward charts, the timers, using things like when, then, when you get this done, then you can go outside and have some fun, showing them what priorities are. And when they're struggling, how big are those steps? How big are those tasks? We're not going to send them upstairs to clean their room for an hour because they probably spent 20 minutes, looking at a new toy that they found under their bed and forgotten all about cleaning up. And then we go and check in on them and we get upset. So we have to understand where our children are coming from. And if they have a hard time following through, then we have to be the ones that are there to support them through that and not expect that they are going to be able to do that on their own. And eventually you are going to be able to do that, but we have to be on top of children that struggle with this. Okay, so these are things for you to keep track of yourself so you have a better understanding as to why your child struggles and what extra support they need. Speaking of, so what gets in the way? Okay, so we have executive functions. There are the things that make us be able to succeed in life. So when you look at these executive functions, you see that there's that focus, sustaining, shifting attention to tasks, being able to understand what the next task should be. Then there's that organization and prioritization. Are your kids the ones that are getting up really early? They get up at 6 o'clock, but they're playing video games, watching TV, and then we're rushing out the door because they haven't gotten ready. So what are their priorities? And then we've got the action, the monitoring, the self-regulation, checking in. I'm doing my homework. Am I actually working on my homework, or am I looking out the window because that's where my desk is and this actually isn't a great spot? Am I able to keep myself calm because right now I'm feeling stressed out? Am I able to check in and do something to calm myself down, take a break, that kind of stuff? The other piece is memory. Some children have very weak working memory, and that affects them because they forget things. Even just doing a sentence, when you're reading a sentence and you've corrected a word, by the time you get to the end, some children, their working memory is so poor that they've now forgotten that word. So when we're talking about doing tasks and you've got a child that struggles with memory, we don't have anything written down, we don't have a checklist, we don't have a timer, we're not checking in, they're struggling, right? And we feel like they're being oppositional, we feel like they're being defiant, but these children are struggling. And then we've got the emotion, like we said, and the effort. So regulating, alertness, sustained effort, and speed, right? So what does it take to finish this task? How long do I need? At what pace should I be doing this? And some of us get upset because some kids are very, very slow, slower pace. The morning we have a routine going, they need an hour and a half to get ready because they're slow going. Yet we let them sleep in and we give them half an hour and we're rushing them and it doesn't work. So these are the things that you want to kind of pull apart and see where your child is struggling and then how can we support them. So the other thing that's important is parents tend to feel like children and teenagers value the same goals that you do. We want to make sure that they're doing well in school, and not only just doing well in school, that they're excelling in school. And what is important to them? Is a clean room important to them? Is spending time with friends important to them? Is good grades important to them? So what is important to them versus what's important to you? We have to kind of be on the same page. And even if they're not motivated to do their homework, for example, they may be motivated to do their extracurricular. So they're motivated to get their homework done because they have an extracurricular to look forward to. But if your child comes home, they don't really have anything to do, homework gets done, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. There's nothing really driving them to move forward because some of us need more motivators than others. So being aware of what is important to your children, what they value, and can we put those things together so we can prioritize what needs to get done. And sometimes in life, there are things that are just not fun to do, but then we can look forward to doing something that we want to do when we get our priority done. So what are your children's long-term goals as they start getting older? This could be something that you have a better understanding of, not something necessarily we'd be looking at with a child that's 5 or 6, but as they start getting older, what do they value? What are their goals? Friendships, hobbies, respect. And children that are strong-willed, they want your respect. They want you to hear them. And when we start doing a dictatorship in the home and just saying, if you can't get it done, I'm going to do it for you, or this is how you're going to do it because I'm sick and tired of fighting with you, then these children that are strong-willed are like, okay, well, you're not listening to me, so why should I listen to you, right? So if we sit down together and say, this isn't working, I need you to get this and this done, how are we going to make it happen? Because we seem to get stuck. We don't, the dishwasher doesn't get unloaded. How can we do this so I'm not yelling so much? What are your suggestions? And then talk to them about that, because they want some autonomy. They want to feel heard as well. But sometimes we get frustrated and we just start telling them what to do. And then there's a push and pull between the parent and the child. So once you know what they value, and then we know how to motivate them. And it could be collaboration is enough to motivate them because they want to feel heard. And they might need a reminder, but we've already talked about this. So that's another thing. Once you set that plan, it may be something they value, but we have to still remind them. And then we get sometimes frustrated that we have to remind them. Are they doing it on purpose? Their brain is under construction until 25. It can feel frustrating, but with children that push limits, with children that are easily distracted, with children that are going to try to get away with stuff, we have to be on top of those children. And again, not in a micromanaging way, and not in a controlling way, but you have to follow up. If you, at the end of the night go, they never unloaded the dishwasher, that's on us, right? Because that child is like, I was playing video games. I was playing outside. I was doing other things. I would have done it. I just forgot about it. And now I'm going up to bed. I don't think about, that the kitchen needs to be cleaned at the end of the night. So trying to reframe your mindset and think about what do your children value and how can we work together with them? So, what is that hook? So for example, if your child wants to get a job and they need math, well, they're going to go to math class. They may not love math class, but I really value having a job and I need to be able to count money if I'm working at Tim Hortons. So the math class then becomes of value to them because their motivator is that they want to go and get a job. Okay, so this is where we need to kind of think about what is going on with our kids and how can we work together? What do they value? And try not to put your own value or judgment on what their values are, and your child and teen needs to do things for themselves and not to please other people. And a lot of us were brought up that way, that you have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way, you have to get certain grades, you have to take certain activities and things like that. And sometimes, kids are just not motivated because it's not what they want to do. So again, being mindful is what works for you and what works for me, and can we make it work together? And ask your kids, talk to them, ask why we're feeling stuck. We have all these charts set up, yet we're still not getting things done. What do you think we can do to get these tasks done? I notice you love to go outside and play basketball. What do you think if you get to pick 3 things to do before you go out for basketball? And then once you go out, when you come back, I trust that you're going to be able to do the other thing that you're supposed to. Or I notice that once you go outside to play basketball, you really struggle with getting your chores done. So you get some downtime when you get home from school, and then this needs to be done before you go out for your basketball. So talking about those types of things, and that's kind of like the when then. When you finish your chores, then you can go outside and play basketball. If they don't finish their chores, then they don't get to play basketball. They really value the basketball. They're really having fun, especially if there's friends outside. But if we're not on top of it, if we say, fine, just go outside, just do it later, then we have to step back and say, this isn't working because I'm chasing you at the end of the night. And then we just start yelling and we get upset. So this isn't going to work. Okay. So do they know how to get there? What are the steps that they need to take? And do they have the skills needed to make it happen? So that's another thing, is that sometimes we look at, they can't or they won't. And a lot of children can't. They don't know what the steps are. They don't know logically what the next thing should be. Problem solving is an issue for your child. And sometimes when we step in and we do things for them, they learn that someone's just going to step in and do things. So how do we support them? Let's play the what if game. What are the steps to get you to your goal? Even just cleaning your room, what does that look like? It's overwhelming, so you're telling me to go clean my room. My friends are coming over, so I'm really, I value the fact that my room is going to be clean because my friends are coming over. I don't know where to start because there's a pile of clothes everywhere. There's dirty dishes everywhere. So how can we start? What do they do to maintain the cleanliness? But what can they do to get started instead of going in there for 2 hours and then they feel overwhelmed? So let's pull all the dirty dishes out. Step 1 and step 2 will be taking all the clothes off of the floor and deciding which are clean and which are dirty, right? And if they're dirty, is there a hamper, or are we taking them right to the laundry, and maybe they need to do the laundry because you wash something once, or I've already washed this, but it ended up on the floor and now it's ending up in the wash again. Nope, we're not doing that game. So they may value keeping a cleaner room if they know that the consequence, the natural consequence is that you have to wash your clothing now, right? So do you recommend having conversations about values with each child individually or as a family conversation? I think that's a great question because you can come together as a family, but I would definitely talk to everybody separately first, and then come together as a family. It really depends on what you're talking about. If it's like the house is a mess, and I'm saying I've had enough, I keep cleaning, no one seems to care, and we're kind of doing that shame and blame game, right? Instead, let's sit down as a family and say, okay, look, I'm really struggling. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. What would be helpful to get this house more organized? I notice that I'm, yelling and screaming all the time, and I don't want to do that. I know that you keep your room so nice and clean because your friends come over, but when it comes to the living room or the kitchen, I feel like I can never keep up. So how can we work on this together? The other thing is that you can individually talk to your children because everybody is different, right? So what they value and what they're struggling with may be different. Maybe we're not talking about the whole house. Maybe we're talking about the child with their school, with keeping the room organized, with in the morning, they're really struggling because they can't find anything. So I would say that there's not a black and white answer with this, but it's understanding what the situation is. You can talk individually and then come together as a family. And then especially if one child is struggling with certain things, let's talk to them individually. Do we need to bring it to the family, or is this just the child, and then having the siblings in there is just going to make them feel attacked? Okay, so great question, but you have to figure out what's going to be best for your family, and it may take more than one conversation. Great, I'm glad you found that helpful. Okay. So let's get into some strategies. Know their distraction triggers. So how are you for your distraction triggers? Do you know what your triggers are? Do you go to write an email and then something pops up on Facebook, or your phone is beside you and you hear the dinging, right? So what is it for your children? When they sit down to do their homework, can they be in their room on their own? Do they have to be close by? But if they're close by to you and you're in the kitchen and you've got toddlers in the other room that are making a lot of noise, how can we find that happy medium of them being close by to somebody, but also can ask for help and it's not too noisy and distracting? So being mindful of what those distraction triggers are. Visualize finishing the task and what is the first step. So you can do this in many different ways. So for some children, what you can do is, for example, getting ready for school. So what does that look like? Maybe to them, it's having my pants on and having breakfast, right? And we're saying, no, it's having your shoes, your jacket, your backpack, and your backpack filled with everything that you need, plus your lunch. So let's take a picture of every step and the final picture of what it should look like, or the final picture of what your room should look like, or what your bed should look like when it's made, or what the playroom should look like. So what are the steps involved? And for some children, you can write it out. You can take some pictures and have it as a slideshow in a tablet, a checklist, have the little pictures that they can look at. So what are those steps? How much support do they need? Do we need to show them how to do things first and then watch them do it? And then we can step back. And then what does that look like? What does the end result look like for them? Don't get distracted by feelings of disappointment. And sometimes children do get distracted. They do sometimes get upset, they get frustrated, and then they want to give up. And it is okay to take a break, but then how do we bring them back? Okay. Oh. Okay, so give clear directions. Listening skills can lead to missed details. Okay, so when we overtalk, then some children are just going to tune you out. You're taking too long. So keep it really clear, short and sweet. That's why writing things down or going over things with a list that's really simple, a checklist, can be helpful. Take breaks. So depending on what they're doing, like for example, if they are cleaning their room, they can't do it for an hour because then they end up trying on all the clothes that they found under their bed, or that Lego set that they thought they'd lost forever and now they're putting it together. So they may need to take a break to go back. Same thing with homework. Maybe they feel like it's not very organized wherever they are, so they're distracted by the fun stuff in the room or the mess. They're cleaning up the mess instead of getting to homework. And then they sit down to do their homework and they're not very organized, so they don't know how to get started. So let's get started with the easiest questions first. Let's set a timer for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And then you can take, a little bit of a break, maybe a 1 or 2 minute break or a 5-minute break, and then we come back. I mean, this is a lot of work, but some children need more of this support. And create a plan and have a team. So depending on how this is happening, where the organization needs to happen, you may need to tag team, with your partner. This may be something that maybe you've got older kids that they're going to help with getting the kids into the house, making sure that they check their checklist, to hang up their bag, put their lunch pail into the kitchen, empty the stuff, get all the paperwork out, and then they can do their check, right? So who's supporting you on this? Can this child do this on their own? Do they need a little bit more support? Does it always have to be you? Can we get them started and then somebody else can finish up, or you can get them started and they can finish up? But like was suggested earlier, do we have a family conversation? These are conversations that we do need to have. Some of us just do everything, and then we teach our children, we'll just do everything for you, and then we get frustrated, right? So let's sit down, let's create a plan. How can we work on this together? Okay. So now I found this is for college, but I mean, they're great tips, and I think everybody can get started with trying to get organized. And then when you send them off to college and university or move out into their own homes, then you know that they're going to have these really great skills, right? So get organized with a to-do list. Silence alarms and keep Open internet tabs to a minimum. Break big projects into small pieces. Use music and headphones to cut down noise. Find the best environment for efficient studying. Clean up and organize your workspace, and then reward yourself. So when I get my homework done, then I can go outside and play basketball. Those headphones or playing maybe instrumental music will drown out some of that noise that's around the house. So these are great tips. It's coming up with these kinds of ideas and altering them to your needs and what's going to be best for your child, especially a child that has a hard time focusing. Some of these things can really be helpful because you think, well, should I put music on? But it's actually helping me stay focused because it's the outside noise that's more distracting than having music on. What's the best environment? Is the space organized, or are we just pushing things out of the way? Do you feel like the house has a place for everything? Does the child know where their bag goes? Is there a hook that they can get to? Do they know when they have to go and clean the bathroom where all the supplies are? Do they understand the steps? Can they easily get the garbage bags to put a new garbage bag into the bin? What are those things that you need your child to help get organized? Do we support them in different ways with getting the house more organized, putting labels on things, maybe decluttering because we have too many things? So getting ready for school is chaos because they can't find where their shoes are. They can't find clean pants. And we didn't know that because the room is a bit of a mess, right? So let's work on what the issue is. What are the steps to get you there? And then how do you stay consistent? So some of these things can be really helpful to you depending on what your situation is. Okay, so again, more resources out there. It's just finding something that's going to work for you. Take time to teach planning and skills. Use a daily agenda. Kids we're wanting them to be organized, but we don't have an agenda for them. There's no schedule, there's no checklist, there's no timers. We don't have a family calendar so they understand. Some children really like to see what's going on and they have no idea. So they're just living life wondering, do I have soccer today or do I have scouts tomorrow? Is today a free day? So let's get them organized. Let's figure out what's going on. How much time do they need to get certain tasks done? If they want to go to that party on Saturday, but they have a test they have to study on Monday, do they know how to break down the steps? Are they sitting down to do their studying? Do they know how to study? Do they know how to get organized? And that's planning, and that could be planning hour by hour. And that's using that paper agenda and using other apps and things like that that might be helpful. But when they write things down, that's a lot more helpful for them because it sticks in your brain, right? So can you use some technology? Place individual schedules on top of the desk, develop and write out SMART goals. So can they set those goals? And SMART goals are, is it relevant to them? How do I know when I'm going to be done? So when we break down our SMART goals, we have to think of those things as well. And what are the steps, the small steps to get you to the goals? And do your children know how to do that? Or do we have to sit down and break it down? This is a very time consuming. So you'd have to pick your priorities and then how do we break it down into steps for them that will be helpful. So this was somebody that posted, and they have ADHD. So they have Post-its everywhere. So your child may be struggling with ADHD as well. So if you have struggles with executive functions, such as organization, such as task initiation, working memory, we have to put more work in. And this is what it looks like. I mean, this is an adult's house, right? So how much are we setting our children up for success. Okay, and you don't have to have a child with a diagnosed ADHD, but you can see that maybe they're struggling with some certain executive functions. Maybe we are struggling. Maybe it's not very organized in the home, and there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of noise, and then this child needs more of that downtime. They need more organization, and they're not getting it. So they just get stressed out and they don't do anything at all. Okay, if anybody has any questions, feel free to write them in the chat. I'd be happy to share, to answer. So homework. Homework is a big struggle. It will be coming up as well as the school year is starting. So what does their homework space look like? I love this little nook here that I found online. It's really simple, it's clean, and it's close to the kitchen, so it's close by, so a child can kind of watch them, but we're not right on top of them, but we are aware that they're there. Check in, make sure that they're not cleaning their room because they're right there. And we can keep it clean because there's not a lot of space to put things, there's not a lot of place to put clutter. So what about noise? Some kids can shut it down. Some kids get really distracted. Is it too far away from you? Too many distractions? So all these things, what are the barriers? What's getting in the way from your child being able to get their homework done and feel organized and be able to get to it? And then we can peel back some layers as well, because instead of thinking, well, they're just doing this because they don't want to do homework or they're being defiant, instead, why are they struggling? Do they have some anxiety? Do they feel like I'm never going to get it done? I have too much to do. I don't know what I'm doing. The teacher didn't explain this well and I didn't ask any questions and now I'm stuck at home and I don't know how to do this. Maybe the avoidance behavior has been working when I kind of sneak away. Someone hasn't checked in on me. No one's letting my parents know that I'm not handing in my homework. It's working for me because I don't want to do the homework because of whatever reasons. And the avoidance is working. So I can sneak away and eventually it's bedtime and no one's remembered that I have homework, or I just tell everybody, oh, I don't have homework and I'll deal with the teacher when I get to school tomorrow. Your child maybe has difficulty with the work, like I said. They have a low tolerance for frustration. So some children are more dysregulated, they're more sensitive, and then they have those unhelpful thoughts. When they do get their homework started, they feel overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. I don't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't write down the pages. I just said math. So they get frustrated. They may feel overwhelmed, or those poor organizational skills to get to homework, to make notes, to be able to look at what's in front of you. There's a lot of organizational skills, and sometimes we have to do more hands-on work until the child understands what they need to do, and then we can step back a little bit. Some children, you may have two kids in the home, and one child can go and do their homework no problem, and the other child really struggles, and we get frustrated because we think, why is one child got this and the other child doesn't? Like, this is frustrating. However, we have to look at the child that's struggling to say, why are they struggling? And instead of assuming that they're doing it to be defiant or they're being stubborn, what are those other pieces and how can I support them? And not in the moment. Let's talk about the fact that homework is a struggle for us. It's really tough for us to get started. I notice that we're always fighting about homework. Tell me what's going on. And this is happening on a Saturday afternoon, not, in the middle of homework when we're not feeling very calm or we're getting frustrated, and maybe your child is feeling frustrated. Trying to help multiple kids with homework at the same time didn't work at our house. One at a time was the key. So each got the full attention they needed. Yeah, and I think that's all about family planning, right? So that would be getting support. And if you are parenting with a partner, this is something that you have to work on together. Some parents may have more patience for certain topics or with certain children. So how do we tag team? How do we work on this together? And parents may have to come together to say, this isn't working to help everybody at the same time. So how are we going to tackle this? So working on it together as a couple, and then engaging your kids to say what would be helpful. When do they have the most energy? Does one child need to go outside to get rid of some of that energy? Does one child need some downtime so they can regain some energy with some downtime because they've been overstimulated? And then we can get started. And maybe one child is like, I just want to get it done and over with. So great, you get to go first, buddy. And the quicker you get done, you get to pick the TV show. So working together as a family and figuring out what's going to work best, because some families, some children are more work. And we have to, instead of resisting it, say, where do they need the help? Can we teach them how to do things? Can we facilitate this and eventually step back? Or do we have to be there along the way for the first little bit? Right? So it is exhausting, but we ourselves have to be organized and figure out what our children need. So here are some suggestions for what you can do. When you first sit down to do homework, take 2 minutes to put loose papers into proper folders. Use 8 minutes to reread notes, 10 minutes to save your hours for searching and studying. You'll quickly get into the habit of putting assignments where they belong. I mean, something like this, maybe for you and I, we're like, yeah, I know how to get started on a project. Other people, no idea. If you had to walk into the kitchen after you had a party and it was just like stuff everywhere, would you walk in and walk out, or would you be like, yeah, I know what to do with this. I know, where we're going to get started. I'm going to start with the dishes, and I can get rid of the dishes, and I'm going to send my partner to take the garbage out, and somebody's going to sweep the floor. We got this, right? But that's not always the case, and even as adults, sometimes we struggle with that. Working in 30-minute blocks, and for some children that might not work because they're too little, but set a timer. What does that look like? Is it an egg timer? Is it on their watch? Is it a visual that they can see? And challenge yourself to finish a certain amount of work within that time. So research actually says if you do set a timer, you will get more done. So this could work for your kids. Some kids may feel like there's more pressure to get things done. However, this could be a cool way to see if it's going to work for them. Try it yourself and see. I know it works for me. When I set a timer and I'm like, I'm going to get this much done, I get a lot more done. Skip the problems that stump you, right? So sometimes we spend too much time on the ones that we're struggling with. Let's go with the ones that we do know. So then we can ask for help, or then we can take it back to school the next day. Okay, routines. Routines and habits are necessary to be organized. So if you do not have routines, if you do not have those healthy habits, this is what routines helps with, right? It helps with positive, healthy habits. It teaches priorities. It teaches time management. And this is one of my favorite checklists, and I found it on the internet, so you can download it. You will be getting these slides later, but I love it because it's got the little time there. So the child knows to check the time. Do you have an analog clock in the home? Even understanding the passage of time is really helpful for children to understand. What does 15 minutes look like? How much time do I have left? All those things are really important, instead of just being like, oh, it doesn't really matter. I'll just wait until I get screamed at to hurry up, the bus is coming, or we have to go. Who wants that, right? Let's get ahead of it. And let's add that bonus that when I get these things done, and this is my checklist, then I'll be able to spend some time playing Lego or going outside. So that's what routine routines do is they make it an automatic. Hopefully your parents are not calling you to make sure that you've, done your cleaning and you had your shower, for the day, because you're doing it. And it's not even something, it's an automatic for you. So that's what routines are supposed to be. So we're not micromanaging. We are supporting them. We're giving them the visuals. We're telling them how much time they need. And with some children, really being specific. Because if you don't say to use the bathroom and brush their teeth, they won't go. And then they'll go halfway to school. They'll be like, I have to pee. Or did you brush your teeth today? I haven't brushed my teeth all week, right? So we have to check in with them. Because again, it's not something that they value. If their breath is bad and no one's bugging them, I don't care, whatever, So, for us, we think, well, how come we're not caring about this? So we have to make it a routine and something that they don't think about. So why are routines good? Well, they teach children good, healthy habits, organizational skills. And when the home is organized and there's a predictable home environment, it helps your children feel safe and secure. Routines focus on spending time together, also strengthen relationships. So having that time to read a story before bed, a special snack after soccer practice can become a special time for you and your child to share. And we have to get things done in order to get that story. So the story could be the motivator because the child likes that quality time with you. That's their motivator. So we have, 3 things on the list before we have to go to bed. We've set a timer, and if you want your story, you have to be done by 7:30. And if you're not done by 7:30, unfortunately, there will not be time for a story, right? That will be the motivator for them to get their tasks done because they really want that story. So praise, accommodate, and teach. Celebrate the behavior you want to see more of. We tend to pay attention to the behavior that is not great, but let's pay attention to the effort. Let's pay attention to when you see things you do like. Some children will mess things up on purpose. Some children will just say, I can't do it because they know you'll jump in and do it for them. So be mindful of not rescuing and giving your child some space and allowing them to feel a little frustrated, take a break and go back to it. Showing them that their best is good enough, and just the fact that they're trying is important. If positive reinforcement isn't working, then we may need to accommodate. So help me understand how I can help you. So we're really struggling still. What would make the day easier? What would be going to school would be easier? Morning routine seems to be a little bit hard. Is there things that you need more help with? Is there things that we should be doing at the end of the day? Or should we be doing it, at the beginning of the day? What can you do on your own, and what do you need help with? Okay, so make a plan together. We tend, again, like I said earlier, especially with those children that are giving you more trouble, that are a little more resistant, we tend to turn the house into a dictatorship because we're just frustrated. So we get frustrated and we just tell them what to do, and let's work on a plan together. Everybody likes to feel heard. Everybody wants to feel like they have something to input, that someone's going to listen to my ideas, and they're going to be more willing to follow through because they were part of that plan. So having an important job to do in the family routine helps our children and teens develop a sense of responsibility. Routines can help develop basic work skills and time management. So teaching your children how to do these things, you are building them up to be great people, independent souls that will be able to go out into society and give back to the world, give to the family. Those types of things build their self-esteem. When they can make their own sandwich, when they can make you breakfast, those are things that are important, that your children have these skills, they know how to do things, and that your kids, feel like it matters, that someone's noticing. But they need more help, some of them, and need more steps. So those visuals need to be there. The motivator needs to be there, so that sometimes the reward charts are helpful to notice the effort. And then eventually, once they're doing it, you can take the checklist and the reward charts away, or they may be modified a little bit. And routines are good for you too, because it keeps things regular and consistent. It makes it feel like you're doing a good job, because a lot of parents feel very overwhelmed. They feel anxious and stressed out. They sometimes take on the emotions of the children and the chaos in the home, and they just feel like they're barely keeping their head above water. So this way, we don't have to do micromanaging. We're not constantly nagging. We're not constantly reminding, because the child or the teens understand what their role is. They know what they have to do. And here's a checklist. Here's, I love the to do and done. When I take one over to the other, it's kind of fun. I like the Velcro. And these are the tasks, and I can decide which one I'm going to do first, but these are the 3 tasks I have to get done. The when then I've mentioned, when you do something that I want you to do, then you get something you want. So when your morning routine is done, then you can go outside and play, or then you can play your Lego or whatever it is. The first and then is a little bit different. The first and then is more like organizational. So first underwear, then pants, first sunscreen, then outside. Okay, when then is they've got a choice. If they really want the then, they have to follow through with the when. So when things are hectic, those routines help you feel organized, and they lower your stress levels. So routines are well planned, they're regular, and they're predictable. Okay, so we don't want to be too rigid. However, if we don't plan, if we don't stay consistent, and you fall off the wagon, let's get back on again. But plan it together, work on it together, what's working, what's not working. And eventually you won't have to be talking to your kids, because they're going to be doing things on their own. They're going to get ready in the morning on their own. And then maybe the motivator is that we all got ready, we sat down, and we're having breakfast together instead of everybody running around and screaming and yelling, and I'm dressing the kids as we're running out the door. So here are some resources for you, for if you're looking to sign up for more courses or you need some support. Are there any questions from anybody? You're welcome.